Hello everybody, it's Donna. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's card is called an Inside Out card. It is inspired by one that I saw Sam at Mixed Up Crafts do. She did one where it was kind of on acetate, so they're floating. This one's a little bit different, but totally inspired by what she was doing. The idea behind the card is simply that the front of the card will have a message that says to turn inside out, and once the recipient turns it inside out, the inside of the card becomes the outside of the card where all the elements are going to be, and the elements are going to be attached to the top of the card or using acetate floating from the top of the card. I'm going to start my card by doing all the stamping. I'm using Gnome for the Holidays as one of my stamp sets. Now I want the scene to be reversible, which means I want it to be able to see it and for the card to be tidy on both sides. No matter whether they're looking from the front or the back, I want it to be tidy. So I'm taking the 3 gnomes and I'm going to stamp them once in the proper orientation, and then I'm going to do some reverse stamping using my silicone mat. They're not going to be reverse stamping on the same piece of paper. They're going to be separate because I'm actually going to put them on either side of a snowbank. I'm also going to stamp one of the gnomes a 4th time for the front of the card. Now for some of the elements, I actually wanted it to have mirror image stamping on the same piece, which means that the front and back of the piece of paper will have the same image. Mainly the snowman that I'm going to do, as well as I think there's going to be I know there's going to be a North Pole sign that's going to have just the image stamped on the front and the back, because I don't need it to be on the outside. Hopefully you'll see what I mean once we get going. So there you can see I just did some mirror image stamping using my silicone mat and my Stamparatus. I'm going to stamp the ink. I'm just placing it to make sure it's all going to fit on that piece of cardstock. But once I apply the ink's actually going to go on my silicone mat. Just want to make sure it doesn't move, so I'm just putting my magnets there. Then I'm going to ink it up. I'm going to ink it up a couple of times, actually, and stamp it onto my silicone mat. And then I'm going to place the Whisper White cardstock right on top of that, and the images will be stamped in reverse on that. Now, they are slightly different. I'm thinking like they're not as deep a black, but it still works perfectly fine. Nobody's going to really notice too much. Just rubbing my hands just gently over them. I don't really want to smear the ink on the other side. I just want to pick it up. And there they are. Now, I noticed the one elf with the Christmas tree on her head. It was a little smudged, and I didn't really like it, so I am going to do that one again. Just going to wipe it all off, and then I'm going to do that one elf again. I also need a 4th gnome. I don't know why I can call them elves. They're gnomes. Just for the front of the card, which I just need to be the regular way. And there, I got the image the way I liked it. So now I'm just going to remove that stamp and put the other gnome back, and I'm going to stamp it one more time so I have the images that I want. I'm going to end up with 15 elements altogether, or 15 pieces of paper, because I'm going to color them and cut them out. Now I'm going to take an old retired stamp. I just want a snowman. I want something different to fill it in, and I didn't want to do another gnome. Now I don't need, these were ones that were back to back, and I didn't need the back part, so I'm just going to do this snowman and mask off the other part. Now this is the one where I'm stamping the image on the front of the paper and as well on the back. And you can see there it is on the front, and there it is on the back, because I picked up the image off the silicone mat. Now I'm going to do the North Pole sign. I need that one the same way as I did the snowman. I needed the front and then the reverse or mirror image on the back of the piece. So I'm going to stamp it onto my silicone mat, and then stamp it, put the paper down, stamp it over top, and I'm going to have the image on both sides. Now I'm going to have some other elements I didn't think you would see them from both sides, so I'm just going to stamp them twice and not worry about mirroring them or making them exactly the same. Just going to go ahead, just stamp them twice. And that would be, there was a little bell in one of the kits or in one of the stamp sets, and a wagon from one of the ones from a couple years ago, and some presents. This is a great way to use up some of your stamps that you have from previous years. Now, since I'm doing all my stamping inside, I might as well do the sentiment, which would be technically for the inside of the card, which is actually going to end up being on the outside, but at the back. I'm using for that a new stamp set from this year. Just going to try to find it here. It is called Christmas Means More. Okay, and there's all the elements that I need to color. There are 15 of them. I need to color them, and I need to cut them all out. Now, you can cut these out by hand. Some of them actually had dies, but I actually used my scan and cut. Now I've colored them all. Now, I did use Wink of Stella on any beard or hair, as well as anything that I thought should have been shiny. I colored the reverse of the snowman and the North Pole. I also stamped onto the North Pole the word North Pole. I didn't obviously want it mirrored because I wanted to say North Pole in the right orientation. I also did some clear glitter for the snow on the North Pole as well as on the snowman. It just added a little bit more sparkliness to it. And you can see I'm going to flip the snowman over, and you can see I did both sides, and it looks perfectly fine. I also took from the Joy dies, I cut out the word peace out of Real Red, because that's the base color of the base of the card we're going to be doing. And then one of the shadows out of white, and then the second shadow out of Real Red. Also typed up on my computer just something that said, please turn me inside out. And I used the classic label punch to punch that out, as well as to punch a Real Red layer for underneath that. Also took two mats in Whisper White, 5 1/4 by 4, and I ran them through my die cut machine with an embossing folder. Now, this is one I've had in my stash. It's basically snowflakes. I don't know where I got it from, but I'm sure you have something. Also took a piece of Whisper White, 3/4 of an inch by 5 1/4, and ran that through with that embossing folder as well. Now, for the card base, I need a piece of paper that's a little bit bigger. So this one's going to be 9 1/2 inches by 5 1/2 inches. It's going to be scored at 4 1/4, 4 3/4, and 5 1/4. That will give us two sections at the top and the bottom of that piece that are 4 1/4. The middle piece, we are going to accordion fold it. So I'm just going to take the middle score line and fold it in half. And then I'm going to take both the front piece, and I'm going to fold it outwards. And then I'm going to flip it over and do the same to the back. So I get almost like an accordion fold there. So there's a little piece on the inside of the card that's going to be sticking out, and that's where we're going to attach our elements to. I'm just trying to line it up really well as best I can. And then I can't find my bone folder, so I'm just going to use something else I had just to really burnish those folds there. And then I'm not going to use glue for the outside. I don't need that opening there on the outside. I'm not going to use glue because I don't want it to get messy. So I'm just going to use some like double-sided tape. You can use tear tape or whatever works for you. I'm just putting on two pieces because I want the whole section to be adhered down. And then I'm just folding it up and making sure that it's really, really stuck well. Now I'm just to get rid of some of my pieces, and because I have gotten confused which side was the inside and which side was the outside. This is technically the outside, so I'm putting down the one embossed piece. Then I'm going to open it up and attach what's going to be the outside, the other embossed piece. Now on the other side of this, because when it's standing up, the other side will have our sentiment on it and our whatever message you want to write. So I'm going to glue that down there as well. Now it becomes obvious which side is the front and which side is the back. And I have gotten confused. I've had put them on the wrong way before. Okay, now for the inside, or what will be the outside, I'm just going to put my peace word that I had done up. I'm going to use dimensionals. I also forgot I needed the On Earth stamp that's in that stamp set as well. So I just went off and stamped it and then brought it back. And I'm going to glue it flat right underneath the piece. Once the On Earth piece is glued down, we're going to start on the front of the card. I'm just going to use some glue to put down my little label that I made. Just trying to get it right in the center. And then I'm going to take the last gnome that I did and attach it to in the center right above the wordings. Now I can start on putting my elements all in. Now with the two pieces of thin embossing that we did, I'm just tape them together. Now I'm taping them together with the right sides out on both. So the insides or the wrong sides are on the inside. And then I'm just going to cut a little snowbank. This way it makes them completely the same on both sides. I'm going to remove that tape. And then I forgot that I actually wanted to put some sponging, maybe in gray or blue or something, just to simulate a little bit better the snow or define the snow. But I forgot about it at that point. So I glued the front one there, and then I remembered the sponging I wanted to do. So I did go back and add some sponging just in some gray, just to give the snowbank a little bit definition. It didn't really make too much difference. It probably would have been better if it was in blue, but I didn't want to add another color to my card. I'm just lining it up and making sure that it will close. So I don't want it to go over the line. Now here I am sponging, and then I'm going to sponge the other piece as well. You actually don't really see too much of this in the final card. So it might not be even a necessary step. Now I'm not putting the back of the snowbank on because it needs to cover up some of the elements first. So we're going to work from the front by attaching the pieces. Now my gnomes are all right on the front, but the sign, the North Pole sign, and the snowmen end up actually being behind. So they actually end up being between the two pieces of snowbank. I just wanted to give it a little bit of depth and to not have a lot of weight. So if I had just glued them to the front, I would have had to have a second piece for the back, and I wanted to not have too much weight for the top of the card, or else it may not stand up. I'm just laying out kind of where I wanted these elements to go and removing the double pieces and leaving them at the back just so I don't get confused. And then I'm going to attach the first gnome to the front of the card. And then I'm going to go with the North Pole sign, but it's going to be attached to the back of the snowbank, the first snowbank. And I'm just going to go from there. I'm just going to zip through this really quickly. What I'm doing with that paper is if there was too much glue on the element, I didn't want it squirting everywhere, so I took some of it off. Now I'm going to work from the back. I'm going to put the snowbank on. Now I haven't put the individual little tiny pieces that you wouldn't see from both sides on yet, because there was no reason to. I wanted to do all this at once. Now that snowbank is on, I can add the back pieces. This gets not tricky, but you do want to make sure they're lined up perfectly. And with the liquid glue, you can move it around a little bit. You also might have to remove the snowman's mittens or the North Pole sign behind what you're gluing, just so you're not gluing it in between the two pieces, because you don't want that. Okay, so I finished that off. I did add the bell and the presents and the little wagon to the front. So that's a close-up of the card. I think it turned out amazing. It gives you a lot of reasons to use your little pieces, little stamps that you may not ever have used before as little elements to these cards. I'm just going to take some rhinestones, some real red rhinestones I've had for a couple of years, and sprinkle them around my piece. Now, I like you doing cards that do use some retired products. Unfortunately, it does mean that you can't purchase them like the snowman, but I think as crafters, we all have things in our stash that we can use. I hope you enjoyed this video. I am going to show you a couple of pictures of the cards up close here. If you would like to see more from me, please comment and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell icon so you're notified each time I upload another video. Thanks for watching, and stay safe.